SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. From personal banking to growing your business or buying a home, our expert guidance makes it simple. We're more than a bank. We're your partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man, way past 21. I want you to believe me, baby.
Hey, good morning. Welcome in on this Thursday, the 26th of February. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. And, of course, on your SuperTalk Mississippi radio stations. Show's presented every day by Community Bank. Online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. I'm Richard Cross. My running buddy, my sidekick, my partner is Lance Tolbert. He originates from our network studios in the capital city. Good morning, Lance.
And I'm percolating here at the network studio today. How are you doing?
Do you have any raindrops on your head rolling in this morning?
I'm saying, man, I was moving fast, and the raindrops, I think they stopped around 3 or so, which the NOAA reports were pretty accurate. Probably going to get a little bit more through the day, but, yeah, it was just enough for a little dampening, a little condensation.
Yeah. When it dries, it's going to leave some dirt spots on your vehicle.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And at some point, we will definitely get back to where the pollen is your predominant color on your car, but we're not there yet. So, yeah, just the dusty.
No, I had not thought of that. It had not entered my mind, and yet we're days away, aren't we?
It's coming, man. It's coming. Everybody get ready. Well, and, it's just a sign of the times. Spring's a-coming.
Yeah.
Everything's waking back up.
The pollen is necessary to get the flowers and the blooms,
That's right.
I suppose. There you go.
And, and doctor's visits.
Yes. Good time to be an allergist.
Yeah.
Showers in the morning in Oxford. Can attest that it's sprinkling just a little bit here in North Mississippi. Then cloudy in the afternoon, 69 degrees for the high with winds out of the west and the northwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. About a coin flip on the rain today in north central Mississippi. Starkville, you've got a 40% chance of rain with cloudy skies early, some showers perhaps this afternoon. Even a little thunder mixed in possibly. 72 degrees for the high with light winds out of the west. Cloudy in Hattiesburg today with a slight chance of a rain shower. 78 degrees for your high. 78. Winds out of the south and southwest 10 to 15, so winds comparable to what they were yesterday. Ocean Springs, you're cloudy, especially this morning with a slight chance of a rain shower. 72 for your high. 10 to 20 mile an hour winds out of the south. Victor Hugo was born on this day in 1802. The French novelist, poet, and playwright known best for his works Les Miserables and The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Two pretty good ones there. Yeah. How about the importance of this guy? In 1829, Levi Strauss was born. The German-American businessman who co-founded the first company to manufacture blue jeans, Levi Strauss and Company.
Appreciate it, man.
Where would we be without Levi?
I would not have blue jeans on today.
Yeah.
They're the best. I love a Levi's, man. I got like one pair that I really, really like, and I just you start seeing a little fraying somewhere. That's time to order. Once you get
so there's a brand and a style that you like.
Yeah, like the number, the Levi. I can't remember. I have to look at the label, but yeah, there's only one and multiple colors that really just do it for me.
Okay.
But back in the day, you had like one or two choices, and jean choices now are fairly unlimited. I think. Mm-hmm. Made for everybody.
You know what though? I mean, you're onto something. When you find a pair of jeans that fits exactly the way they are supposed to fit.
Oh yeah.
And you never want them to die.
No, and you better get ahead of the game and order a pair and start breaking them in as the other pair is starting to lose, some of their ability to hold together. I've made that mistake a few times. Where oh man, I got holes in the knees today, and you got to break in a new pair a week later. Find something to wear for the week though.
Had a pair of pants like that. Mm-hmm. They weren't jeans. They were that 5-pocket style, so like jeans, but they were kind of a heavier weight cotton. Just the right weight, though.
Perfect.
And, man, if they didn't develop a hole and I went back and tried to buy some more, nope, that style was discontinued 3 years ago. 3 years ago? I hadn't had these 3 years. I got to thinking it had been like 10.
Yeah, that's a good pair of pants.
It's a good pair of pants.
Yes, sir.
William Frederick Cody, born on this day in 1846. You may know him better as Buffalo Bill, the legendary American frontiersman, scout, and showman who created the famous Wild West shows. Oh, the great Johnny Cash, born on this day in 1932, the singer and songwriter known as the Man in Black. Hits like Ring of Fire and Folsom Prison Blues. Felt like as I talked about Johnny Cash, I needed to try to drop my voice a little lower if I could.
Drop your voice a little bit.
I hear the train a-coming. Jackie Gleason was born on this day in 1916. The actor and comedian best remembered for The Honeymooners and for his role as Ralph Cramden. Michael Bolton, born on this day in 1953. The American singer and songwriter known for his powerful ballads like How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?
He had some hits, dude.
Had some hits and he had some hair, didn't he?
It was some iconic hair. Yeah.
Yeah. C-Spire text line is open to you this morning at 601-879-4395. This tax season, C-Spire is helping you stretch your refund and still get the devices you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100. There's more to see at cspire.com. Bubba in Starkville says that beautiful antimatter blue F-150 is going to look great covered in yellow powder.
Yeah. Gives a little bit of a glitter effect.
Closing in on the time where you are really, really thankful for the all-you-can-wash car wash pass. There are months where you don't get your money's worth. You pay like $20 for the month and you only go through one time and you're like, well, I could have just paid for it on a solo. And then there are months where you're like, can I go through twice a day? It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, man. You can do what you want to do.
Mine, I've just given up on the washing of it. I think it likes it that way. It's just tougher.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I probably ought to take it through the hand wash somewhere. But the SUV, she just, I think she likes having a little dust on her.
Yeah. Starkville City Jail is the best Johnny Cash song. That comes in on the C-Spire text line. Certainly tells a story, doesn't it? On this day in 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte escaped from exile on the island of Elba, sailing back to France to launch his 100 Days comeback attempt before his eventual defeat at Waterloo. Today in 1993, do you remember this? A truck bomb exploded in the underground parking garage of the World Trade Center in New York, killed 6 people, injured over 1,000. Most of those injuries were from smoke inhalation. It was a major early Islamist terrorist attack on U.S. soil. 1616. Over 400 years ago, the Roman Inquisition formally ordered Galileo Galilei to abandon his support for heliocentrism, the idea that the earth revolves around the sun, marking a key moment in the conflict between science and religious authority. You see, old Mr. Galileo was like, there's a sun, and it's hanging in the air, and we're all just spinning around it. And they're like, nope. And you better not say that again, you schmuck. Do you understand? Galileo.
Can you imagine he had like a little science project that he brought in with like the styrofoam balls painted and, had the first science project where you did the solar system?
Yeah.
He invented that.
Took the cardboard box and put the sun up in one corner and then made the planets line up progressively farther away.
See, this is how it works, guys.
They're like, no, sir. Won't be any of that. 1936, the February 26 incident in Japan. A young nationalist military officer or group of officers staged a coup attempt in Tokyo, assassinating several high-ranking government officials before the rebellion was suppressed. We're back with you after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
I will stand my ground, and I won't back down.
From the Bendable Glass Traffic.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Here we go. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross.
now that's entertainment.
Love is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring. Bound by wild desire, I fell into a ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire.
Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. C-Spire text line 601-879-4395 from Paul. Richard, I remember Jackie from Smokey and the Bandit. Sheriff Buford T. Justice.
I love him.
CC in Senatobia says, Old Cash, great singer, horrible actor. Get a message about Johnny Cash, his one and only trip to Starkville. But it gave him a song. It gave him a song. Then a Jackie Gleason reminder. Gleason was awesome in The Hustler, played Minnesota Fats.
Yes, he did. I remember that. Yeah.
Give that man a pool cue. I pulled up a clip of Jackie Gleason with Johnny Carson during the break just a second ago, and first thing that jumped out, like genuine admiration from Johnny Carson of his guest. Said he was a huge fan, an unabashed supporter, and just thrilled to have him on as a guest. Jackie Gleason comes out. The audience loves him. He blows them kisses. He is dressed to the nines in a blue suit, ties, French cuffs, and big old gold ring on his finger. Sits down, stands back up, blows him another kiss. And Johnny starts talking to him, and all the while Jackie Gleason is reaching into his suit pocket. First thing he does, pulls out a cigarette, a lighter, and lights one up.
Yeah. Just right there.
Things that you could do on television or that people did on television that you don't do anymore.
Yeah, and then Johnny had all the guests, too. And great interviewer. One of my favorite styles of all time would stay up all the time, with my mother. Everybody else would go to bed, and we'd watch Johnny Carson. And I just love the interviews. I guess that's one of the things I love about this show, too, and what we get to do. Just kind of a lot of nostalgia, but it's really cool when you have somebody as skilled as a Johnny Carson or a Richard Cross that really knows how to talk to people and have a conversation.
First, last, and only time you should ever put my name in a sentence with Johnny Carson.
Well, on a different scale, but
kind of you nonetheless.
Well, I mean that it's just a really refreshing conversation style of interview, which I think we've lost a little bit today. And it's really fun to go back and watch some of those old Carson interviews with people like Gleason and Winters and those guys.
And Ronald Reagan.
Oh, yeah.
What a guest he was with Johnny Carson. Jeff in Grenada says, the Honeymooners used to watch it with my mom. What I wouldn't give to do that again. Jeff in Grenada.
Yeah, good times.
2012, an unarmed teenager by the name of Trayvon Martin was fatally shot in Sanford, Florida by neighborhood watch volunteer George Zimmerman. That was the beginning of a pretty dark time in our country's history. It sparked nationwide protests. It sparked nationwide or scattered nationwide riots and looting, burning of cities, created debates on self-defense laws, and began the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement, which turned out to, though for some it had great intentions, turned out to be a bit of a scam. In 1991, Tim Berners-Lee publicly demonstrated the world's first web browser. It was originally called World Wide Web, then later changed to Nexus. It was a foundational step in making the internet accessible to the public. And finally, in 747 BC, according to ancient astronomer Ptolemy, with a P, this date marked the epoch, the starting point of the Nabonassar era, used as a key reference for dating ancient Near Eastern history and astronomical records. Paul says you should listen to Home Free cover Ring of Fire. It's outstanding.
There's so many good covers of Ring of Fire, actually.
They are you familiar with Home Free, Lance?
I am not.
They are an all a cappella group, and, oh, man. Yeah, you might want to pull that up and run that. It's good. Really good. Jim and Ripley says, Johnny Carson was the best. Even my Baptist preacher dad would let me stay up and watch Johnny Carson.
Loved it, man. It was just so much, so many great memories.
What's in the news here in Mississippi this morning? Well, another day, progress being made, but still no appointments happening, no elective procedures happening at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. They say significant progress is being made in responding to a cyber attack that has disrupted statewide operations now for a week. However, the healthcare provider has canceled previously scheduled clinic appointments and elective procedures for at least 2 more days. In a statement, update yesterday from UMMC, regularly scheduled clinic appointments and elective procedures will be canceled through Friday. All canceled appointments will be rescheduled soon. Patients are reminded if they have an emergency issue, they can call the triage line at 601-815-0000. Patients who contact us require urgent care will be contacted directly to schedule a clinic visit today through Friday. UMMC's hospitals and emergency departments in Jackson, Grenada, Madison County, and Holmes County remain open. Officials aiming to resume normal statewide operations as early as Monday. They said, through diligent and around-the-clock work, we are hopeful that we will be able to resume elective procedures and regular clinic operations as early as Monday. Our ability to do this will be clearer over the next couple of days. We sincerely apologize for this inconvenience. Senate Bill 2522, which establishes the Upskill Mississippi Grant Program, received near unanimous bipartisan support in its originating chamber, passed with a vote of 49-3. Senator Nicole Akins Boyd drafted the legislation. It would allow Mississippians to learn a new trade or build upon existing labor expertise through a free workforce-aligned program at a local community college. When the bill made it across the Capitol to the House, it was double referred, meaning it got sent to 2 different committees that it has to clear to get to the floor for a potential vote. It was passed in the House Universities and Colleges Committee, but it awaits a vote in the Accountability and Transparency Committee. The Bureau of Labor Statistics found that Mississippi had 71,000 job openings last November, so about 3 months ago, And the state's job openings rate was at 1.3% higher than the national average. To fill these gaps, the bill seeks to expand career and technical education and to align what is taught in community colleges with the training high-value career pathways, particularly in rural regions of Mississippi. Accelerate Mississippi, the state's workforce development arm, would be required to provide a list of eligible programs based on priority sectors and occupations on an annual basis. So if there's a need for jobs in construction or HVAC or plumbing or electrical, kind of subsets of construction, or nursing or engineering, the list would be used to determine who would be eligible for free tuition. Eligible participants would have to meet specific criteria, including being at least 24 years old, having lived in Mississippi for at least 2 years prior to applying, being a United States citizen, possessing a high school diploma or GED, meeting certain financial aid requirements, and maintaining a certain academic rate of success. Along with the free tuition, the people accepted into the program would get, they would have access to up to $500 annually for books and other education-related materials, while also having access to support services like academic advising, career planning, and practical work experiences. I think this is a good program, and it is a reminder that if you want to work, if you need a job, if you have a job and you want a different job, a better job, a higher paying job, there are opportunities today here in Mississippi. 4 juvenile spider monkeys that were smuggled into the United States inside lunchboxes are now being cared for at the Hattiesburg Zoo. Zoo officials announced that each went through a quarantine period before being introduced to their outdoor habitat alongside a senior adult male spider monkey. He's been at the zoo for several years. 2 of the monkeys, per officials, are male. The other 2 are female. Before the monkeys arrived at their new safe home in Hattiesburg, officers the Fish and Wildlife Service discovered them inside lunchboxes at the U.S.-Mexico border and confiscated them under the Lacey Act. The Hattiesburg Zoo was contacted by the AZA Wildlife Trafficking Alliance. They asked the zoo to permanently house and care for the primates, and zoo officials, of course, accepted the request. Spider monkeys at the Hattiesburg Zoo.
They're happy to be there instead of for somebody's lunch, apparently.
Yeah, I would say so. More news is next, and then a sports update for you as well. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Seabrook Dot.
It's time to switch on.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
The fire went wild. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher. It burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire. The ring of fire. Yeah, love is a burning thing. And it made
There you go, Paul. That's the one you mentioned from Home Free. That may not be everybody's speed, but and big-time talent with those guys. Big-time talent.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for recommending it.
Yeah, they got a bunch of good stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, oh, I might have to start listening in here.
Thomas, good morning to you. Appreciate you checking in. Bubba and Starkville, those spider monkeys don't know how lucky they are.
That's right.
For lots of reasons.
My dad had a spider monkey once.
Say what?
I said my dad had a spider monkey once.
In his lunchbox?
No, thank goodness. Yeah,
that's good.
It was a pet, yeah.
Jim and Ripley, Johnny Carson with Rodney Dangerfield and Don Rickles. Doesn't get any funnier than that, except when Burt Reynolds was on.
Yeah, those are all my favorite people. And Don was a unique guy. He could, roast anyone to their face and get away with it. Couldn't do that today. But I'm telling you, Jonathan Winters, too. You add that to those 4. I mean, that's those Rodney Dangerfield, Don Rickles, Burt Reynolds, Jonathan Winters. Oh, man.
Wood products manufacturer Carpenter Pole and Piling is expanding its footprint in Stone County. MDA announced on Wednesday that the company is building upon its existing operations in Wiggins with a $5 million corporate investment. It's expected to create about 10 new jobs. Carpenter Pole and Piling specializes in utility poles, foundations, and marine pilings. The company is constructing a new treatment plant and installing a new 2,600 cubic foot autoclave to increase production and add an alternative treatment option. The expansion also includes clearing and preparing 20 additional acres for a new pole storage yard. MDA assisting this project through the state's flexible tax incentive. Stone County also helping. Bill Cork at MDA said Carpenter Pole and Piling isn't just expanding. The company is reinvesting in Mississippi because after nearly 40 years of doing business here, the Carpenter team knows this is a state where they can confidently grow and succeed. So they make utility poles? I guess the treatment is kind of like treated lumber. You gotta have treated utility poles to do that. Man, there are a lot of ways to make a living, aren't there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you gotta take some risks out there. That's.
I would imagine that you had some of their poles that made it to North Mississippi because there were a bunch of snapped light poles in the northern part of the state and in the Delta not too long ago. How about this? A Rankin County man. I'm really disappointed in this story. Like, I'm glad that they have found him. I'm glad that he is being brought to jail and will be in court. I just feel like this story could have been way funnier. A Rankin County man has been arrested in connection with commercial burglary at a restaurant in Florence. According to the Rankin County Sheriff's Office, deputies were notified on February 24th about a break-in at a fish house located on Dixie Road. See, that's where it really piqued my interest. Employees arriving to open the business discovered that cash had been taken from the register. And then I was less interested. Because stealing cash is, it's wrong. And if it's your cash, you're furious about it. But would this story not be better if he was like trying to steal, 38 cases of hush puppies?
Oh, yeah.
Investigators reviewed surveillance footage and observed a male suspect wearing a black hoodie outside the restaurant the night before the theft was discovered. Said the individual was seen going to the building's electrical box, shutting off the breaker, cutting power to the restaurant. Additional cameras in the surrounding area also captured images of the suspect. Good work by the deputies. They launched an investigation, and they got that cat within 24 hours. Scott Dennis Roberts, his name, 47 years old, from Rankin County. Lance's stomping ground, and he was booked into the Rankin County Jail on a charge of burglary.
Not a place you want to be.
Nope.
I've been over there. But, yeah, it would have been
tell me more.
I've been over there as a guest, yeah. I've gone
that's
in
what they all say, Lance.
Actually, I did get a chance to go hang out and have a couple of open invitations to go, check out the Mississippi prison systems, that being one of them that I've been in. And our great Mississippi Bureau of Prisons did not lock me up. I got to see how it all works. But, yeah, it would have been a better story if he'd had like 20 cases of hush puppies and they had to tail him to the fish fry.
Yeah.
Didn't
I was just trying to eat.
I just wanted food, man.
Scott Dennis Roberts awaiting his initial appearance in county court. May have to make room for a couple of more in the jails in Mississippi. 2 suspects in custody and have had bonds set after an 18-wheeler driver was shot in Jackson earlier this month. This story's crazy. JPD announced Tuesday that it worked with Grand Prairie Police Department in Texas to locate Alejandro Macedo and Omar Nirio. Both have been charged with aggravated assault and shooting into an occupied vehicle. How'd that happen? According to JPD, they received a report that an 18-wheeler driver had been shot by 2 men in another 18-wheeler. From the investigation, quote, as he was attempting to change lanes, the driver of the second 18-wheeler pulled up beside his vehicle, attempting to prevent him from changing lanes. The 2 drivers got into a dispute, after which the passenger of the second truck pointed a weapon and fired several shots into the victim's truck, striking him once in the shoulder. Identity of the victim has not been released. He was treated at a local hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Macedo, the driver, got a $50,000 bond. And the passenger, Nerio, believed to have fired the shots, his bond was $750,000. Time for your morning sports update, brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Temperatures in the Philadelphia area going to be around 70 degrees, which means it's a great day for you to get out on the golf course at the Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. You can book your tee time online at dancingrabbitgolf.com. Dancing Rabbit, part of Pearl River Resort. Both Mississippi State and Ole Miss were in action last night. One of those games went to the wire and then some. The other never really in doubt. Alabama scored 63 points in the first half against Mississippi State and led it by 30 at intermission. Final score in that ball game, 100-75. Crimson Tide getting the win. Achor had 18 points, just 11 for Josh Hubbard on 4 of 13 shooting, 13 points for King Grace off the bench. Mississippi State turned it over 12 times in the game. Alabama attempted 50 threes in the game. Shot 44% from behind the arc. It was bombs away in Tuscaloosa last night for the Alabama basketball team. In Oxford last night, 40 minutes wasn't enough. 45 minutes wasn't enough. Ole Miss and LSU needed 50 minutes to determine the outcome, and when it was all said and done, it was LSU emerging with a win, snapping a 5-game losing streak, while Ole Miss's losing streak moved to 10 games. Max McKinnon was the star last night for LSU. 34 points. He scored 18 in the first half and 11 in the 2 overtime periods. He was 11 of 24 from the field. Ole Miss had 4 players in double figures, led by Ilias Comardine. His 26 points tied a season high. 20 points from Malik Dia, 16 from Eduardo Klafke, and 19 from A.J. Storr. Ole Miss was hot shooting the basketball for much of the game. They cooled off late in the second half, and the 2 overtime periods netted LSU the win. Both of those teams are now 3-12 in the SEC. Heck of a basketball game. Ole Miss only turned it over 6 times in the game last night. Just couldn't make enough shots down the stretch. The owner of the Phoenix Suns wants to do something to spice up the All-Star game weekend. You remember as a kid growing up how big it was, how big a deal it was? I say that you do. Maybe you remember. I do. How big the slam dunk contest was and how big the three-point contest was? Suns owner Matt Ishbia wants more star players participating in All-Star Weekend events. And to try to convince them, he has offered to pay $1 million prize to the winners of the slam dunk and three-point contests, with another $1 million going to charity in each event. On the Pat McAfee show, Ishbia said, let the best guys in. Let's get the best guys in. Let's make it awesome. There is red tape, though. Officials from the NBA League office and the Players Union told ESPN that such a prize would not conform with the existing bonus structure in place. Ishbia had the idea, and he put it out there, but he didn't consult with the league office before making the offer. He is, however, allegedly motivated to find a way to get more stars into the event. This is crazy. The last time an actual all-star won the slam dunk contest, 2011, when Blake Griffin won it. I think that's the year he jumped over a car. That's your sports update on this Thursday morning, the 26th of February. Lottery update coming your way next. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
When the man comes around.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
People want to hear the truth, man. That's what we're going to do.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
You know what that music means? It means it's time for your Mississippi Lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. Lotto America jackpot next drawing is coming up on Saturday, and that jackpot is up to $16.5 million with an estimated cash value of nearly $8 million. No winner in Lotto America last night. No winner in Powerball last night either, which means Saturday night's jackpot up to $238 million with a $111 million cash value. Mega Millions closing in on $500 million. Friday night's drawing up to $458 million with an estimated cash value of $212,400,000. No millionaire winner in last night's Millionaire for Life drawing. The numbers were 1, 33, 35, 39, 55, and the millionaire ball was 3. Got some new games that are on the way from the Mississippi Lottery. March will tip off with Multiplier Madness from the Mississippi Lottery. A bit of a take on March Madness, starting on March 3rd. 4 all-star scratch-offs hit retailers, each packed with multiplier fun. There is 2X, $2 for top prizes of $20,000 and instant double wins. 5X crossword, $3 for top prizes of $35,000 with a 5X multiplier. The 10X games cost $5. That's for $100,000 prizes and multipliers up to 10 times. And finally, 20X, a $10 scratch-off, could yield you a $200,000 top prize with a 20X multiplier. Get your Multiplier Madness scratch-offs in March at participating retailers. Learn more at mslottery.com or on the Mississippi Lottery official app. Thanks for being with us this morning. We'll tell you about guests that are coming up. Marie Sanderson, former policy director with the Republican Governors Association and a GOP strategist, will join us. We'll talk with her about some of what is going on in D.C. right now, including whether or not the Senate is going to move on the Save America Act. Look forward to the conversation with Marie. And then from the MSMA Board of Trustees, Dr. Norm Connell will join us in the 8 o'clock hour. We will talk with him about the recently passed final rules and regulations for the OB System of Care program that is going into effect here in Mississippi. To start the 7 o'clock hour, we are going to talk higher learning, specifically the IHL, Institutions of Higher Learning, and the legislature, and what they are doing or not doing with some legislation that would allow Mississippi's universities that are excelling to be rewarded for it. We'll get into that conversation coming up in just a few minutes. There was one other sports story caught my eye yesterday. College football seems to be more and more focused on tampering. We have, for years now, with the transfer portal in place and NIL in place, heard stories and heard coaches complaining about tampering. Oh, their guys are being tampering with. But nobody really did anything because the dirty little secret is they were tampering too. The NCAA FBS Oversight Committee is recommending to the Division I Cabinet emergency legislation penalizing schools who get transfers without the player entering the portal. The head coach of the offending team would be prohibited from all football and administrative duties through the 6th contest of the season. So a 6-game suspension for a head coach. The school would be fined 20% of its football budget. So that would be kind of a sliding scale depending on how big your football budget is. And the school would be required to reduce the number of roster spots by 5 for the following season, regardless of the head coach's employment status at the school. Meaning that if your head coach got caught tampering and you fired him, you still would have a reduction of 5 roster spots. If approved at the Division I Cabinet meeting in April, the legislation would become effective immediately. We shall see where this goes moving forward. Trying to put some teeth, some real punishment into rules that have been in place for a while. They just haven't been followed. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. 1 quick hour in the books, 7 o'clock hour on the way. The news is next from both SuperTalk Mississippi News and Fox News. You've got it locked into MRC. We're back after this.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
What are we going to do? Rise and shine with information and insight.
Check it out.
Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you. It is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Thanks for joining us, for being part of the conversation. Mornings is presented by Community Bank. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC. C-Spire text line is open to you at 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395. Lots going on at C-Spire, and right now, as we get closer and closer to tax day, C-Spire reminds you that this tax season, they're helping you stretch your refund and still get the devices that you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100 a month. Learn more online at cspire.com. C-Spire, customer inspired. With Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. We're glad to have you along. This 7 o'clock hour brought to you every day by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services can help. It's where they come in. They can provide a full range of employer services plus a custom plan that fits you. To learn more about what that means and what it might mean for your business, give them a call. The number is 601-206-7966 or online at mwgemployerservices.com. If you've been listening to the show, you've heard me talk in fairly general terms about the IHL and about our colleges and universities in Mississippi. And there's been a little bit of a buzz phrase that has been used. It's something that we have talked with Nicole Boyd about. She is chair of the Senate Colleges and College and University Committee. And we have think mentioned it with Lieutenant Governor Hosemann. I don't remember if we talked about it on the air with Governor Tate Reeves or not. But that buzz phrase has been performance-based funding. It's something that a number of other states, I think upwards of 30 nationally, have gone to in terms of the way they allocate dollars to their public universities and colleges in their states. And the concept is fairly simple. Now, the application of the concept can get a little complicated because you've got to determine how money is going to be raised. But the concept is quite simply, you will be rewarded as a university through tax dollars that are funded to you based on positive outcomes. You know, kind of like the way a salesperson that's on commission gets paid for selling. The way an athlete gets a new contract and they get compensated for doing well. Right? You get drafted out of college in, I don't know, pick the sport. Let's just go with football. And you get that first contract, and it's relatively small, still a lot of money. And then it's time to go and perform. And if you perform well, the team that you are on or another team will be willing to pay you handsomely. NFL players talk about getting the second contract. That's the big one. But if you don't perform well, you will either get cut or you will take a pay cut. The idea is you need to earn your money. That is not the way that the system in Mississippi currently works in the institutions of higher learning. I have used the phrase before, the word before, and I'll use it again. It's a welfare system. It is socialism. It is everybody go out and kind of do your best, and we'll all make money, and we'll put all the money in the pot, and then we'll distribute it to make sure everybody's got what they need. It's kind of Pollyanna, honestly. Well, the Senate was looking to do something about that. There was a bill in the Mississippi State Senate that addressed performance-based funding. And it wasn't something that was going to go into effect tomorrow. It was a long-term play. Senate Bill 2523, an act to bring forward sections relating to IHL, establishing parameters for a new performance-based funding model for state institutions of higher learning, to require that such funding model be used to disburse 75% of general funds appropriated for such purpose and be implemented by July 1st of 2029. So a long time window, right? 3 years before this new funding mechanism would go into place. It passed on the Senate floor, and it made its way over to the House Education Committee. And yesterday, this bill died in the House Education Committee. It will not go to the House floor for public debate. In fact, I made a post on X last night. May have been a little harsh. Had some time to kill before the Ole Miss basketball game. Was thinking about this, and here's what I wrote. The Mississippi House Education Committee decided to let Senate Bill 2523, performance-based funding, die in committee today. The excuse for not advancing the bill to the House floor is to give time for the development of a new funding formula by a consulting company, the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems. NCHMS, as it goes by its acronym, is the same company that was hired back in 2010 to develop, wait for it, a funding formula for the IHL. That funding formula was never put into place. My assumption is that NCHIMS is going to want to be paid for their work again. That formula would have allocated state tax dollars based largely on performance metrics. Instead, the IHL opted for socialism. Status quo remains incredibly popular. The IHL will not fix its own problems. They want the legislature to allocate the money to them and then leave them the heck alone, and they will distribute it as they darn well see fit. And so for now, the legislature, for its part, chooses not to hold the IHL accountable for poor graduation rates and laughably low retention rates at a majority of its schools. Compared to its colleagues in the Southeastern Conference, Mississippi State and Ole Miss are woefully underfunded. But when you've got to prop up 6 other in-state schools, what else would you expect? So what are we talking about when we say performance-based outcomes? Well, what are we talking about in a bigger picture? We're talking about college and universities. So for a college to be successful in its job, what is its job? Its job is to educate its students. Believe it or not, the job of a university is not to provide a bunch of jobs for faculty members and staff members. It's actually to educate its students. So if you are educating your students, what does that mean? Well, that means that they are making progress toward graduation. They are starting their work toward a degree, and they are continuing that work toward a degree. You would like to think that it's toward a degree that will have value in the marketplace, and ultimately they are graduating their students. Is that happening? You might be surprised to realize how low the retention rates are year over year. And you might be surprised to know how low the graduation rates are. And yet, the money just keeps on flowing. And based on the House Education Committee's decision yesterday not to bring this conversation to the floor of the Capitol for debate, it's just going to keep on flowing. They let it die yesterday. We'll talk more about this, but Marie Sanderson is joining us next. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Traffic.
The news you need.
Every 10, 15 minutes, there's something.
The talk you love.
They really talk about the things that matter. I'm into all that stuff.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
There's a black man with a black cat living in a black neighborhood. He's got an interstate running through his front yard. You know, he thinks he's got it so good.
Thanks for joining us. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. Happy to welcome my first guest this morning, Marie Sanderson, GOP strategist, former policy director with the Republican Governors Association. It's been a while, Marie. Great to see you this morning. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning. Great to see you too this morning.
So we talked yesterday a fair amount about the State of the Union address. What did you take away?
Look, I think the president, a goal of any president, particularly in the second term, is to double down on the accomplishments. I think he did that. I think he created an opening that Republicans really needed on immigration. That is an issue that was overwhelmingly popular for Republicans when he ran, and I think it ceded some ground on that. I think he's given Republicans an ability to talk more about immigration, given that made-for-TV moment that happened during the State of the Union on immigration in particular. But look, the State of the Union is the State of the Union. Every year you have kind of the same antics at this point, which has been kind of par for the course over the last 5 to 10 years, you have people that don't show up, you have people who yell, then you argue the next couple of days if you're going to censure said members. But I think overall, the president did what the president needed to do, and did no harm.
The truth of the matter is the State of the Union doesn't really move the needle in terms of election outcomes. I mean, if you're looking at immediate polling, sometimes there's a little bit of a bump for the president who gives the address, but it doesn't have any lasting value, generally speaking. Does this have any lasting value? You mentioned the kind of the viral moment where he asked Democrat representatives and senators to stand if they wanted to put America's first. They didn't. I mean, is the lasting value what we're going to see in campaign ads?
I think you're right. Yeah. I mean, look, the State of the Union doesn't make a lot of news. People are more interested in seeing the men's hockey team at the White House and on screen than they were what the president had to say. It's late at night. So, people like you and me stay up and watch it. I'm not sure the public did. But yeah, I think the punchline is it did create an opportunity for Republicans to go on offense on immigration. And a picture speaks 1,000 words, and they got that at the State of the Union.
Curious your reaction on this. I thought the president was a little more restrained and a little more on topic than he sometimes is. We know that his speaking style is one where he kind of wanders off in different directions and he ad-libs a lot. I thought specifically with how he talked about the Supreme Court decision, there was way more restraint there than we have seen in the past.
I agree with you. I think, look, the president, as I've said on your show and people know, like, he's hands-on. There was nothing that was delivered that was not approved by him and thought by him and debated by him. So I think the way he handled the Supreme Court was absolutely calculated. I thought there was some restraint there. I think there was obviously a lot of advice from his team about how to handle that. And I think, again, it could have been a moment where Democrats could have gone on offense about how he handled that. And I think he did no harm and made his point, but did no harm in how he handled the Supreme Court.
All right, so moving this forward into governing and legislating, but doing so with the calendar in mind, because we're now fully turning our attention to the midterms. We've got primaries here in Mississippi in less than 2 weeks. I guess 2 weeks from this past Tuesday. That's about to happen all over the country, and that's where so much attention is going to go. But the Congress still has to work. And the Save America Act is in the Senate's court at this point. Leader Thune says that they are going to bring it to the floor, says that they are going to have a vote, but has seemed reticent to put the talking filibuster into place. When you look at this issue that people are calling an 85-15 issue, with 85% of Americans being for this act that would create voter ID and proof of citizenship to register to vote. What's going on here? Help us understand the slow play with the Senate.
Well, everything's more complicated in the Senate, and every issue is more complicated. Every vote is more complicated. And I think what you're seeing with Leader Thune is an inability to confirm that he will have all Republicans vote the way they need him to vote. The reality is if you put the bill on the floor and you don't have certainty, then you can create a situation where the Democrats can take advantage of opening up various code sections. That is not what we want. The leader wants to be very tight, very organized if he brings this bill to the floor. So on its face, it's a great talking point. That we're going to have voter ID in elections and everybody should vote for it. The reality is that every bill is more complicated and he's having trouble holding the caucus together. And I think the leader wants to deliver this, but he also doesn't want to have an unintended consequence and let Democrats do something to this legislation that Americans don't want.
I don't know if you can answer this or not. It's the same people every single time. When we look at the senators who are on the fence on controversial issues, are on the fence on issues that seem to be slam dunks for Republicans. You have worked as a GOP strategist. You've worked with Republican governors. You've worked with Republicans in the House and the Senate. What is it about Mitch McConnell, about Lisa Murkowski, about Susan Collins, apparently about Jim Cassidy in this place, or is that right, Jim Cassidy from Tennessee? These senators that always seem to be kind of right there on the, well, not sure that we're going to vote for this particular Republican cause.
Well, an unpopular understanding is that there's always more than the issue at hand, right? They may be negotiating on another issue where they've asked the leader, and so they're withholding their support on something that's really important to the leader in order to get something else they may want, a legislation they want passed or something for their state. But yeah, I mean, there is a group of moderate Republicans. I would put Tillis in that bucket, where they don't just vote in block, and it is frustrating for the leader, and it's always been that case where you have that group. But they tend to represent the states from which they're elected. So Susan Collins is not always a reliable vote for Republicans. I would argue, if I'm on her team, she has to vote certain ways in order to get reelected, and we need Susan Collins to get reelected in order to maintain our majority in the Senate. And so, she does get a certain leash from the leader in order to take the votes she needs to take for her constituents so she can run again and win, because we as Republicans need her to win in order to maintain the Senate. So as it relates to retiring senators, that's more time than we have on your show to talk about, where they are in their history.
So I feel like this always needs to be said if you're talking about Mitch McConnell, who had a long run as the majority leader in the Senate. The makeup of the Supreme Court today is largely to the credit of Mitch McConnell, because he did not allow Barack Obama before he went out of office to get that last judicial appointment, and it's a really, really big deal. And yet, with that said, there's this story that it's his team, it's his office that is making the decisions more so than he is making the decisions at this point. It's abundantly clear that there are health issues related for former leader McConnell. So how often does that happen, where a chief of staff or a policy director or an office staff is kind of the puppet master for a sitting senator?
Well, you have to understand how much responsibility these senators have. And so it is critically important that there's a chief of staff in place in any office that is trusted by the member. So they do have a lot of power. Our chief of staffs for our Mississippi senators are fantastic. I know them personally, and they're doing a great job. And yeah, Senator Wicker and Senator Hyde-Smith trust them a lot to give them good advice and to help make decisions, because senators cannot be everywhere every time. With the situation where you have a retiring senator whose health may be waning, the chief of staff certainly has an extra amount of power. We've heard concerns about that. Senator Byrd back in the day, Senator Stevens, there were concerns about Senator Cochran, but they hold those seats because their constituents elected them, and their constituents need them to maintain that power and that vote. And so they have that with the power of their staff until they retire.
What's your gut feeling? Does the Senate ultimately get the SAVE Act to the floor, and do they get it passed?
Well, I hate to be negative, but I think this is going to be hard. But when the president gets involved and the president wants something, and he works with the leadership, we've seen rabbits be pulled out of hats. So this morning it looks tough, but I've seen miracles, and I've seen things happen on process with the president getting involved.
Those margins are absolutely razor thin. Marie, always appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this morning, and look forward to visiting with you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Richard. Have a great day.
You as well. We'll take a time out. We're back with you after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Seabrook
segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Coffee, conversations, and clarity. What a great way to start your Mississippi day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you this morning. It is Mornings with Richard Cross, just after 7:30. Thanks for joining us. Some rain showers popping up across the state of Mississippi as you head out the door to work or to school today. So maybe give yourself just a few extra minutes and be careful out there. C-Spire text line is open to you, 601-879-4395, 601-879-4395. Thanks to Marie Sanderson for joining us this morning. Always appreciate her perspective as someone who's worked in and closely with. And she said, you're talking about the SAVE Act. It looks hard right now. Not to say they won't get it done, especially when it's something that the president really, really wants. And I think it's abundantly clear that the president really wants voter ID and proof of citizenship to be eligible to vote. And so do, based on polling, 85% of Americans. I did see a post last night on X. This was from the Washington Post. Thune moves to bipartisan housing package ahead of Trump's priority voter ID bill. Senator Mike Lee said this will go over like a lead balloon. And even though you've had 50 senators that have voiced their support for the SAVE Act, apparently there are a handful, 4 is the number most people are saying, that are not in support of the talking filibuster. What a mess. What a mess. But we've got messes right here at home in Mississippi as well. We started talking about this to begin the 7 o'clock hour. We've kind of talked around it. It's time to dive in. It is time to dive in because yesterday the House Education Committee effectively killed the Senate bill that we were discussing that would bring into account performance-based funding for colleges and universities in Mississippi. It's Senate Bill 2523. And while it is not officially dead, and as J.T. Mitchell loves to always remind us, no bill is dead, dead, dead until it's really dead, there are no more committee meetings scheduled for the House Education Committee. So no opportunity to talk about this more, take a vote in committee, and possibly send it to the floor. Because why would we want to publicly debate and talk about something as important as our colleges and our universities? The quote that we got from the chair of the Education Committee, that's Representative Donnie Scoggin, was the IHL, okay, I'm paraphrasing, I'm going to give you the direct quote in just a second. But basically, the IHL has sought this outside company. Sorry. Let me get the name of the committee right. Not Senate or not House Education, but universities and colleges. So Representative Scoggin said, the House is contracted with this consulting company, and they're going to come up with a funding formula. And really, we don't need to even consider putting any legislation in place until we find out what that formula is going to be. So we're going to kick the can down the road. We got time anyway. This isn't going to go into effect until 2029. Well, the reason it wasn't going to go into effect until 2029 was to give a 3-year window for universities to adjust, to make adjustments that they need. So there's some things that you're going to hear as this conversation advances. Because our 8 public universities are currently funded largely through the legislature. They are accustomed to a certain level of funding. And while fair is what you do where you go bob for apples and, toss rings onto milk jugs, it would not be fair to yank funding that our universities are currently relying on and expecting from a budgeting standpoint without a lot of notice. So one of the phrases that you're going to hear a lot is hold harmless, which means there is a starting point for where this funding model is going to go forward. And if you're getting X number of dollars today, that's going to be the starting point. But for you to grow, you're going to have to generate outcomes that are consistent with what the funding model says you need to do. You're going to have to hit certain metrics, and there's going to be a lot of tracking of these metrics. And so your funding can go up and can go down based on the performance that you are creating. Only for the fiscal year that ended in June of 2024, as we now sit here in February of 2026, only 3 of our universities operated in the black. The other 5 lost money. One of them was Alcorn State. Alcorn State, $873,000 in the black. Delta State, a loss of $8.1 million. Jackson State, a loss of $1.9 million. Mississippi State had a $1.4 million in terms of income before other revenues. MUW lost $9.6 million. Valley lost $3.6 million. Ole Miss was $25 million in the black. Southern Miss lost $14 million. And UMMC, and this number is not going to change dramatically because of the way that UMMC has to operate, because of what they are, not only a teaching hospital, but a massive healthcare provider. They lost $26 million. So when you get into funding, for the most simple way of discussing it, you have a per student allocation. It's not exactly per student. It's technically 12 credit hours, which equates to full-time enrollment. It's a full-time equivalency. FTE is the acronym that they use in academic circles. But it's saying a standard student in school for full-time equates to 12 hours. And so that's the unit that they use. And it's also the unit that's used when you calculate what the per student, not just cost, but allocations are coming from the state. At Ole Miss, the university receives about $4,500 per student. At Mississippi State, it's about $5,500 per student. So while there's a difference there of about $1,000 per full-time equivalency, it's not a significant difference. And some of the financial difference that you see with Mississippi State kind of across the board has to do with the extension service. There's federal money that comes in for Mississippi State. There's some things that are tied to their extension service offices that you see all over the state that are just going to make those numbers never exact, or at least match exactly. But close enough that Ole Miss and Mississippi State are tied together pretty closely in this. Southern Mississippi, $8,300 per student. Nearly $3,000 more per student at Southern Miss than Mississippi State. Nearly $4,000 per student more than Ole Miss. And then for the other schools within the system, so MUW, Alcorn State, Valley, Jackson State, it all is about $8,500 per student. So Ole Miss and Mississippi State are between $3,000 and $5,000, $3,000 and $4,000 per student less in money they are receiving from the state than the other schools are. So does that mean that Ole Miss and State are getting less money? than those other schools because they are not performing as well? No. No, that's not the case at all. In fact, graduation rates, retention rates, progress toward graduation, Ole Miss and Mississippi State lead the way by a large margin in all of those categories. So why is it that they're getting so much less money? Oh, it's because they generate more revenue. They don't need the money as badly. But that money does need to go into the system to help prop up the ones who are not graduating students, who are not advancing them toward graduation, and who are not retaining them year over year.
From the Venable Glass.
You're waking up to what matters. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Throw a couple of numbers at you just for you to have. Numbers from the 24-25 enrollment year across the 8 schools in Mississippi. These are the acceptance rates. And remember, everybody in Mississippi has the same admission standards. So the admission standards at Alcorn State, Delta State, Jackson State, Mississippi State, MUW, Valley, Ole Miss, and Southern Miss are all the same. If you qualify to go to any one of those schools, then you qualify for all 8 of them. The acceptance rate for the 24-25 admission year, Alcorn State, 96%. Delta State, 89%, Jackson State, 95%, 96% for Mississippi State, 94% at the W, 96% at Valley, 87% at Ole Miss, and 95% at Southern Miss. That means if you completed a full application and applied to the school said, yes, we accept you, come on down. The admission standards across the board, and again, schools cannot set their own admission standards. They're across the board. Basically, if you apply, you get in. So what about graduation rates? They look at these in terms of a rolling 6-year average. Traditionally, we think about 4-year degrees. Somewhere along the way, it was 5. People like me who took 6.5 kind of skewed the average. So they look at a 6-year rolling graduation rate compared to the national average. The national average for students that start school and obtain a degree within 6 years is 51.2%. Lance, would you care to guess how many schools in the state of Mississippi are above the national average in graduation rate? Out of those 8?
I'm going to let you go with that one. I know you got those numbers.
You don't even want to take a guess?
No. Yeah, I don't want to incriminate myself here.
Here you go, just alphabetically. Alcorn State, 45.3, 6 points below the national average. Delta State, 46.9, 4 points below the national average. Jackson State, 32.2, almost 20 percentage points below the national average. Mississippi State, 62.9%. So 63%, 12% better than the national average for 6-year enrolled students. The W, 37%. Mississippi Valley State. Students that start out and finish with a diploma within 6 years, 22%. That is almost 30% below the national average. Ole Miss is at 68.5%, the highest among the group, and Southern Miss just below the national average at 50.6%. So how do we get here? Mid-1990s, the IHL Board of Trustees adopted an allocation model that used enrollment as the primary driver and fixed the percentage of the appropriation each university received based on the percentage of overall enrollment that the university had at the time. In 2004, the board adopted a funding model based on instructional cost and the quantity and type of student credit hours produced. In 2009, the Board of Trustees voted to phase in a new formula, or that new formula, over a 6-year period to allow institutions to make necessary adjustments. But in 2009, the legislature blocked the implementation of the new formula. In 2011, the legislature passed House Bill 875, which directed the Education Achievement Council to research and develop a new funding mechanism for public community colleges and state institutions of higher learning based upon productivity goals and accomplishments as well as enrollment. That was 15 years ago. And so what did they do? They went out and they hired a consulting firm with the acronym NCHIMPS. And 15 years later, you know what the IHL's done? They've gone out and they have hired the exact same consulting firm who delivered them a model for funding based on productivity and outcomes 15 years ago that they never implemented, and are going to spend untold hundreds of thousands of dollars for another study that, based on the people who've looked at the formula, say it's really probably going to be just like the last one. The new allocation model was approved by the legislative session in 2013 to go into place, and yet the IHL chose not to do it, which is where we started this conversation. They say, allocate the money and give it to us, and we will distribute it as we see fit. Who's holding the IHL accountable? The only group that can is the legislature. And yet that bill died in committee yesterday.
When they ask where you heard it, you tell them.
I know you heard it right here.
Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Thanks for joining us. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi, presented by Community Bank. Online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Reminder that later today you've got In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, an interview with Reggie Smith, who played 17 seasons in the major leagues, a 7-time All-Star, and part of the Los Angeles Dodgers team that won the World Series back in 1981. You can listen to In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar today at 1 o'clock right here on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Happy to welcome in my next guest this morning. Dr. Norm Connell is an OB hospitalist. Actually, I think he's going to join us coming up in our next segment, not right now. Perhaps I should look more closely at the timing sheet. My bad. So Dr. Norm Connell going to join us in a little while. We're going to talk with him about the OB system of care that is going into the place. That's the system that is going to take care of high-risk expectant mothers to make sure that they can get to the best hospital for their specific needs, and going to work hard to identify those factors early so that there's a plan in place and it's not a last-minute decision. So, on this conversation about the IHL funding model, the legislature's ability to hold them accountable, the political ramifications, and the phrase hold harmless. So I mentioned that a second ago. in the adoption of a new funding model, if that were to actually happen. Not going to happen this year, not even going to get the ball rolling this year because the House Colleges and Universities Committee let the bill die that would have gotten it to the floor, where legislators could have actually debated it openly and considered the merits of the bill. I don't pretend to fully know or understand all of the ways that the legislature works. Obviously, committee chairs are appointed by the Speaker in the House, and they are appointed by the Lieutenant Governor in the Senate. And committee chairs certainly have latitude to do that which they wish. But most of those chairs like those positions and like the kind of being the boss of that room. And if the person that appointed them is not on board with something or is on board with something, that usually informs whether or not a bill makes it to the floor or doesn't. Not always. That's not always the case. There is a level of autonomy that goes to the chairmanship. But generally speaking, leadership, whether you're talking about the House or the Senate, and committee chairs are on the same page. They are singing from the same sheet of music. And so, as I told you earlier, the House Committee Chair, Donnie Scoggin, said that, well, we've got this funding formula come out, and we don't need to decide anything right now. His direct quote was, that's not going to be ready until May or June, and at that point, then we can look at that and see what's going to happen. I don't want to take up a bill that's going to interfere with them coming up with a funding formula. They already have a funding formula. They just don't use it. And the legislature has allowed them to not use it for 15 years. Why? Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I genuinely do not know the answer to that question. IHL board members are appointed by the governor. They have staggered terms. Is it a 12-year appointment? That may not be right. I've got to go. I have just forgotten on the length of the appointment term for the IHL board members. But the chairman of the IHL, or the director of the IHL, that's a paid position. That is a full-time staff position. Are the IHL individual board members, because recognize, they all have full-time jobs, unless they're retired. But these are professional people who have been successful in their careers, who volunteer their time. And I've talked to board members and they said, you don't realize until you get into this just how big of a time commitment it is, especially if you take it seriously. And so they volunteer their time. How much of the actual information and understanding of these formulas and these funding models are getting to the individual board members that have to make the decisions? 9-year terms for the IHL members.
Yeah, it was 12. It is 9 now.
Okay, so they've dropped it from 12 to 9, and those are staggered terms. As people roll off, the governor, whoever the governor is in office at that time, Tate Reeves obviously right now, then appoints IHL members. That the IHL had a formula in place that they paid a consulting company a significant amount of money to put together over a long period of time, were ready to go. The legislature said, yes, you can go. And then they just said, no, we're just going to keep doing it the way we've been doing it. Why is that? Where'd the pressure come from? Who pressured them into not using this model? I'm assuming there is pressure that came from those schools which did not stand to benefit as much as others. But when you look at what goes into this formula for funding. So you've got basic operational expenses. So that's your starting point. Everybody gets their operational money, different sizes, different number of students, different buildings. That number is set. And so you get institutional support and operational maintenance and student services, and that happens. But then you get board priorities for allocation of additional dollars. Degrees awarded, how you're doing with at-risk students, priority education fields. We're talking about degrees that are in STEM, that are in the healthcare field, that are in education. What is your level of research activity? And what are your outcomes? These are the things that we're going to go together to put it together. So I said I'd mention hold harmless again. So the hold harmless piece is we're not going to focus on how badly you've screwed up in the past. We're not going to hold that against you. You are harmless for what you have done prior to the implementation of the new program. But from that point forward, you better start showing progress. If you start showing progress, you will be rewarded. If you do not show progress, you will receive less money. Here's the problem with that. When you say hold harmless, and you are funding schools that have been losing money, then that means there is less money to go to Mississippi State and Ole Miss, who have been operating in the black and producing better outcomes. We looked at the numbers just a little while ago. You're, in fact, not holding them harmless. You're holding everybody that has sucked harmless, and those who have actually been excelling, you are penalizing them. And oh, by the way, the revenue that they are generating is helping to prop up the schools that are losing money. It just doesn't make sense. There was a response to that post I had on X last night from former legislator Herb Frierson, and I thought he described it well. Let's see if I can get to that real quick. It was on a different account. Here it is. Herb Frierson responded to that post. He said, without the performance-based funding, Mississippi State and the University of Mississippi get underfunded. The current funding formula is a rat pack deal. If one gets more cheese, then all get more cheese. He says, I believe the College Board could institute the new formula without legislative action. They are the fourth branch of government. He's right. They could. They have chosen not to. And they have not been held accountable. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm and SuperTalk TV. We're back with you after this.
From the Venable
SuperTalk Mississippi.
You heard it here first.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Here comes the news.
And I don't feel laughing at all. And you...
One quick message from the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395, before I'm joined by my next guest. So I said, look at all the scams at JSU. They've got embezzlement issues, and there have been prostitution-related issues, leadership problems. Nobody bats an eye. Yes, they have had a successive number of problems, one after another, with leadership. Leadership that was chosen by the IHL with people from Jackson State saying to them, I don't think this is a good fit. And the IHL pushed it through anyway. And here we are once again with a search for a president for Jackson State. Glad to be with you this morning. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank, and I'm happy to welcome my next guest. I think we've got an exciting thing to talk about. Dr. Norm Connell. He is an OB hospitalist and a member of the MSMA Board of Trustees. The Mississippi Board of Health recently passed the final rules and regulations for the new OB system of care. Dr. Connell, if you could explain exactly what this means in the simplest terms possible, I certainly would appreciate it. Good morning to you.
Sure. Good morning. Thanks for having me on. The maternal level systems of care is basically a way to rank hospitals that provide maternity care with their ability to provide services. With the model that we use most commonly, there's levels 1 through 4. 1 being the most basic. Hospital provide basic OB services with the ability to identify, stabilize, and initiate treatment for more complex OB problems, all the way to a level 4 facility that has the highest level of specialty care, subspecialists that would support babies and maternity care. And then, levels 2 and 3 would be different levels of hierarchy in the to provide care based on hospital ability, facilities, staffing for more complex OB cases as you go up the spectrum.
And isn't one of the focuses here getting an idea early on in the pregnancy what risk factors might be there so that you can be proactive as opposed to reactive at birth time?
Correct. Systems of care is a broader term than what I just discussed was maternal level of care for hospitals, but systems of care reaches beyond the hospital walls. And what ideally we'd like to do is be able to identify patients who are appropriate to deliver it in their local community hospital, i.e. are low-risk pregnancies, but more importantly, start to identify patients with more complex obstetrical problems and make sure that they're plugged into the right resources early on and get good prenatal care at the appropriate place, and then ultimately deliver at the hospital that's best suited to meet their needs for their whatever problem they have.
The maternal mortality rate in Mississippi is about 5 per 100,000 higher than the national average. About 23 mothers die during or immediately after childbirth per 100,000 live births. And then you've got an infant mortality rate that is about 9 per 1,000, which is a just really, really scary number. So the state, Dr. Dan Edney, the state health department, Mississippi State Department of Health, doctors, nurses, a lot of opinions have come into it, and there are a lot of people that have been working to get to this point. Are there other states that have implemented a system of care like this that serve as a model for Mississippi as this quest to help maternal birth rates and childbirth rates or infant mortality rates go down?
Yes. Thanks for asking that question. We're not first state to begin this endeavor. Some of our neighboring states, I have colleagues in Texas, just to kind of give you a timeline, that started this process about 2018. And they were staring at numbers that are, if you believe it or not, they're worse than ours. And they have had several years into building this system, and they're already starting to see results. There are several states like Texas, Iowa, Maryland, Georgia, Florida. They're at various points in instituting a level of care system within their state, and they all have their own unique approaches. But a basic component of that, again, is looking at your maternity hospitals and designating a level of care for that hospital based on its ability to take care of increasingly more complex OB problems. And, full disclosure, I'm married to a pediatrician, and I'm going to give a shout out to our pediatric and neonatal colleagues. I mean, they've been doing this for years. Most of our hospitals in Mississippi that have a nursery already have a designated level of care, level 1, 2, or 3. And so what we're proposing doing with our hospitals in regard to maternity care kind of mirrors that concept. The other component of this is, making sure that all the supporting resources that you need to make sure someone gets to a hospital safely at the right place for the right care, those systems are in place. So we're talking about EMS services, the local community providers, local community resources being plugged in, and like we talked about earlier, being able to identify patients and what their needs will be, and making sure they get to the right place ultimately to have their baby.
So it stands to reason that bigger hospitals in the bigger population areas are going to have higher levels of care that is available for mothers and for newborns, whether you're talking about the coast or in Jackson or in DeSoto County or Tupelo or Oxford or wherever it may be. Are there some smaller hospitals? We understand, we've all talked about the rural healthcare crisis, but are there some smaller hospitals in Mississippi that are really doing this well, that have focused on moms and babies and trying to make sure that the best outcomes are possible based on the resources they've got available?
There are. And I'm going to reference an organization in the States called the Mississippi Perinatal Quality Collaborative. It's been in existence for several years. Lots of states have their own quality collaborative organizations. And what we do within that organization is work with hospitals to implement AIM bundles, which is an organization that helps develop protocols for maternity care, pediatric care, for common issues like hypertensive disorder in pregnancy, hemorrhage in pregnancy. And we've been doing that for years. So each year, this organization will choose a topic that they want to explore. And, this year upcoming is going to be cardiac disease in pregnancy. But what we'll do is invite hospitals to participate in implementation of these safety bundles. The organization will, educate hospital leadership on how to prepare for implementation of these bundles. Will also help set up the ability to do drills and simulations to practice these skill sets. And the hospitals, I think most every hospital in the state of Mississippi that has maternity services is involved in this collaborative, and gets training on the ground. And this is only going to supplement the implementation of the maternal level systems of care.
Only about a minute left. Dr. Norm Connell is my guest. He's an obstetrician, hospitalist, member of the Mississippi, the MSMA Board of Trustees. This is the fourth system of care that's been put in place in Mississippi. You've got STEM for heart attack patients. You've got stroke system and a trauma care system that's in place as well. I'm assuming a fourth system of care would not be going in if the other three had not produced positive results. Is that a reasonable assumption?
That is a reasonable assumption. Thanks for pointing that out. That's the other, driving factor in doing this in maternity care, is that we've had such success with doing it in adult medicine for those conditions that you just mentioned. And, the idea is that it would work a lot like our trauma care system, heart attack, stroke systems, that, there's one number that that you call, and a patient is directed to the facility that matches the need for their care. Hopefully you don't end up at a hospital that may not be able to meet the needs of that patient. And as you can imagine, it's going to take a lot of people working together, a lot of transparency between systems and entities to make this work, but I think we're off to a good start.
Dr. Connell, appreciate your time this morning. Know you've got a busy day in front of you, and wish you all the best. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, man. Appreciate y'all.
Mornings with Richard Cross. We're back after this.
From the Seabrook.
Check this out.
Now, what can be offered you?
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Information.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Thanks for all your interaction this morning on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395. This tax season, C Spire is helping you stretch your refund and still get the devices you want. Right now, new and current customers can get 3 free devices plus 100 gigs of data for just $100. There is more to see at cspire.com. We are at the end of February, which means we are about 2 months away from the annual Double Decker Arts Festival in Oxford. Double Decker Arts Festival presented by Visit Oxford. Find them online at visitoxfordms.com. A couple of weeks back, the Double Decker Committee released the music lineup for Friday, April 24th and Saturday, April 25th. It gets started at 6 o'clock on Friday night with Penelope Road, followed by The War and Treaty, and then Shane Smith and the Saints at 9 o'clock. That's all on Friday night. Full day of music on Saturday with Annie and the Caldwells at 11:30, the Anameros at 1, Mountain Grass Unit at 2:30, the Heavy at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You've got the Dip on Saturday night along with Margot Price. And then rounding it out, Wilco on stage at 8:30 on Saturday night. To check out the full lineup of music, learn a little bit more, and see about all the opportunities that are there at Double Decker, go to visitoxfordms.com. You love some live music, Lance?
Oh, definitely.
Had a few Double Deckers along the way.
In 21 years of living there, I don't think I missed one.
There you go. Hey, did I screw something up on the camera?
Oh, man, my bad. I hit it and it didn't go back over.
That's my fault. They were good. Yeah, I just didn't know if it was something I needed to mess up.
I think my mouse froze and I didn't recognize it. Thank you, sir.
It happens. It happens. Remind you about my friends at Belk Ford and Oxford Toyota. I'm going to swing by and see them a little later today. What a selection of F-150s, Expeditions, Broncos, and Explorers they've got on the lot right now, in addition to a massive pre-owned inventory. And the neighbor store, Oxford Toyota, just up the hill. Tundras, Tacomas, Land Cruisers. See a few of them out there. Man, those things go quickly. They go quickly. I think if Lance hit that Powerball, as much as he loves the FJ, I think he would transition to the new kind of boxy, kind of retro-looking Land Cruiser.
I'd buy a 6-pack of them, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, get one in every color.
One in every single color. Check them out online, belkford.net, oxfordtoyota.com. Doesn't matter where you live in Mississippi. They would love the opportunity to earn your business. And if you do business with them once, I'm pretty sure, at least if I'm any indication, you're going to do business with them again and again. Great people at Belk Ford. There's a better way at Belk. I just was trying to decide where I wanted to go. We got the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs last week that the IEEPA powers used by the president basically were overused. Not to say there aren't other ways that he can implement tariffs, but the way he's been doing it so far, that's not going to work. Going to have to undo it. So, what happens now? Lawyers get paid. That's what happens now. So far, and many of these before the ruling actually came down from the Supreme Court, but so far, 1,800 companies have filed lawsuits against the federal government seeking refunds for tariffs they paid, which the Supreme Court has struck down as improper and unlawful. Wall Street Journal analysis points to even more of those coming out every day. Most of the well-known names like Costco and Goodyear and Barnes & Noble filed their lawsuits against the federal government before the Supreme Court ruling, but more companies have joined them in the days since the court's decision, including FedEx. Matthew Seligman is a federal litigator filing lawsuits for importers. Said, we're talking asbestos level of lawsuits. And they are all happening at the exact same time. Why? Because people want their money back. Through December 10th, at least 301,000 importers were subject to the tariffs that were ultimately struck down. Customs and Border Protection officials said in a court filing that was the number. The total likely includes many businesses, but also some individuals who paid tariffs. So who's going to handle this? What court does this go to? It goes to the Court of International Trade, a specialized New York City-based federal trade court with plenty of experience, though none of them have involved as many potential litigants or a price tag of this magnitude. What does the Trump administration say about this? In filings in one of the cases that ultimately went to the Supreme Court, the administration's lawyers assured lower courts that companies could be, quote, made whole through a refund, including interest, close quote, if the tariffs were ultimately ruled unlawful. At the end of last week, Trump criticized the justices for not including a clear directive in their opinion, and told a reporter asking him if the administration planned to issue refunds. Trump said this, quote, it's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years. Remember what I said to start this conversation? Lawyers getting paid.
We are surely a litigious society.
Isn't that the truth?
Man. And, whoever was wrong or right or whatever, it's the American taxpayer will foot the bill for it.
Yeah. Well, and if you live in Mississippi, you own a business, you're in the farm industry. I mean, if you own a retail business and you receive your product, at least in part, from overseas, did prices go up on you as a result of tariffs? Probably. How closely are you looking at this? It's, I'm assuming, and look, I am by no means a legal mind. It's just kind of thinking out loud here. But in terms of thinking out loud, my assumption is that this would turn into a class action lawsuit, as opposed to 1,800 or 2,000 or 3,000 or 10,000 or whatever the number of businesses is with individual claims. I don't know how else you handle it. And you give businesses the ability to opt in to the class action lawsuit to prove that they were affected by the tariffs. The total number of tariffs that were collected plus interest goes into a pot, and then it gets divvied up, with a significant cut going to those who put the lawsuit together. I was talking to a lawyer buddy yesterday, and we were joking about air travel and whatever. And I said, well, why don't you just fly pilot? He said, I'm going to have to hit that big old lottery, he said, because this lawyer can't afford to fly private. I told him, I was like, why don't you just get in on a class action lawsuit? That might help. And look, I'm not throwing shade at class action lawsuits. Obviously, the tobacco lawsuit, the asbestos lawsuit were significant for many, many Mississippians. And people that lost significantly. Now you also look at, the settlement funds for the BP oil spill, and the way the fund distribution policy was written, there are a lot of people who were able to receive money from that settlement whose business really wasn't affected because of the BP oil spill. But because of the way the criteria was written, we had people all over Mississippi who were able to collect big, big checks as a result of that. And that's the thing, you have to kind of write broad language in those class action or big settlement type deals. What a mess. What a mess. But it's not the Supreme Court's job to say we're going to clean up the mess. Their job is to interpret whether the law is being followed or not. And they said in this case, under this specific tariff application mechanism, President overreached on his power. So you've got to undo what is done. Trump did say in the State of the Union there are a lot of nations that are saying we want to keep the deal we got in place because we think it's better than whatever the next deal might be. All right, we'll wrap it up with you coming up next. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Thanks for being with us on this Thursday morning.
From the Venable Glass.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
The monitor switch lets you hear
Breaking news. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Most of the preparation that I do for this show happens the night before. At some point, I got to figure out how to sleep because that seems to be fleeting. But generally speaking, I kind of let the news of the day finish, and then can kind of combine it and decide what we want to talk about. And there's a team that puts this together. Alex Payton books guests, and Lance and I kind of trade text messages. He sends them more than I do throughout the day, and we kind of figure out the direction that we want to go. I say only that to say not much of what I do in preparation for the show happens the morning right before we come on the air, but I'll usually pick up my phone and kind of scroll through and see if there's anything that grabs my attention, and this did this morning. I was working on a bowl of cereal. Jane says it's not healthy cereal, but it sure does taste good. It's disappointing that Honey Bunches of Oats with strawberries is not healthy.
Yeah, I feel that way about Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's an apples-to-apples comparison, but Cinnamon Toast Crunch is probably about as healthy as Honey Bunches of Oats. Anyway, so I'm scrolling through while I'm eating my cereal this morning, and I stumble across a story about the Boring Company. B-O-R-I-N-G. That's Elon Musk's underground tunneling company. And Nashville has given final approval for a project there. The initial plan for Nashville is to connect downtown and the convention center, so they're on Broadway, or roughly they're at Broadway, to the Nashville airport. And if you've ever made that trek, you know that traffic can be a bear, and it takes a while. Half an hour, it can be 45 minutes, it can be an hour if traffic's bad. They're saying 8 minutes will be the transport time in a tunnel under Nashville. But here's the thing. The price tag on this, it's got to be astronomical, right? They are literally boring underground, putting tunnels in place. It's going to take forever. $25 million per mile, which, in fairness, is a lot of money. But let's compare it to other projects. Nashville's own 2018 light rail plan was priced at $200 million per mile. That is an 8x premium on what boring is going to charge. New York's East Side Access costs $3.5 billion a mile. I can't even do the math on what the exponent is there. LA Metro expansion running at $1 billion a mile. The Boring Company says it can build 13 miles of twin tunnels through Nashville for between $240 and $300 million. A 95% cost reduction on industry average. 12-foot diameter tunnels instead of 28-foot. Fully electric proof rock machines that mine continuously instead of stopping every 5 feet to install lining segments. 0 people in the tunnel during operations. A machine that porpoises its way into the ground from a truck instead of requiring $1 million launch pits and cranes. Here's the thing that's crazy about this. Elon Musk and the Boring Company really wanted Nashville because of the challenge of the soil composition. So it has worked well in the Las Vegas sand, but in this part of Tennessee, you're dealing with karst limestone, the geology that creates sinkholes, caves, and underground streams. The CEO of Boring Company said that Nashville would not be their choice if they were optimizing for easiest places to tunnel. But instead, it's a test thesis. The hardest possible geology. 50 inches of annual rainfall, rock that creates underground caves and streams, and they just signed a construction contract in Dubai, but they're going to need Nashville to go well. I think it's the most interesting company that exists today. I understand AI's out there. I understand you got rocket companies out there. The ability to take a big machine and have it bore tunnels and lay the concrete supports as it is boring without a human doing it is, to me, the most remarkable thing that's happening technologically in the world today. Maybe that makes me simple-minded. If it does, my apologies. How cool is that, Lance?
Oh, it's awesome.
$300 million for a tunnel from downtown
Get her done
to the airport. And they're going to be able to handle a traffic load. They said 8 minutes travel time. Thousands of cars an hour. Only Teslas in the tunnel. I don't know if that's personal Teslas or like you ride in their cars. Not sure on the answer to that. Thanks for being with us. I will rejoin you on Monday morning, and we will continue the conversation. Dave Hughes in tomorrow. Lance never leaves. He'll be here tomorrow morning. For Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Have a great day.
Your home. A Super Talk, Mississippi media production.